I just need to make sure that YouTube sees it.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. But we should be there. It's just you should be able to just go to our channel.
Yeah, it's live.
Woohoo! So we need to do some tweets. Hello to anyone that's an early bird just seeing us here. Copy.
It's Monday, baby.
It's Monday.
I tweeted out right when I woke up, I saw Bitcoin was up, and I was like, God, food tastes better, music's better, maybe even sex is better. I immediately lost like 500 followers. I was like, damn. All right. Not a lot of people into that. All right.
Oh, you said that and lost 500 followers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Instantly.
Sensitive.
All bears just got liquidated. Yeah.
It could be. It could be.
I tell you what, I was a little shook last night. Like,
it looked bad.
It did. But
what did?
I mean, it dropped it on Bitcoin. Like there was like a breakdown of some sort. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just not very pretty last night. But it was that like brand new weekly. It was right at resistance, and then we broke up. So then everything was okay.
The show goes on.
Yep, we'll show it. We'll show it here on the stream in just a minute. If I can ever get this URL, I only have the weekly open Twitter on my phone. I'm gonna tag you guys with Luke and Don, but mostly Luke. You have so many fake accounts that
it's unbelievable. I might be the most impersonated account on Twitter.com.
Why is that? All right, so at VentureCoinist.
I think it's because I have a real name. I really don't know, man.
I mean, honestly, dog is bad too, but yours is really annoying. Yeah.
At this point, I might start spinning up fake accounts of myself just to speed up the verification. I'm actually behind all those fake accounts.
That would be funny.
No, I don't know. It's actually worse on Instagram. I get so many friends kind of, they're always like, dude, do you want me to invest in your Bitcoin? Why do you keep messaging me about this? And I'm like, I am not DMing you about Bitcoin. I definitely don't want your money. And I also don't want to manage your money or anything to do with it. Yeah, it's bizarre. Where do they show up? In your DMs or what?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they show up everywhere, right? They DM you, they're posting, they're retweeting. The thing that I noticed the most is like old posts that I posted that involved you. They just get retweeted daily, basically, from another.
It's constant.
Yeah, I get that as well. But I've become so quick with the block that also most of them have
they
me
block
blocked.
you.
Yeah, so like I might be the only person not affected by my thousands of impersonators.
Yeah, whatever you see on other accounts, right? Whenever you see someone that you know, it's the same for you. Basically, you just don't see it. It's so annoying.
But all right. Well, Jack, if you're watching, here's 2 first-hand accounts of how we can make the world a better place.
Yeah, just verify the man. How hard is it?
Yeah, check mark. I don't want to pay another, random Instagram guy in LA $4,000 and have him run away with it. It's a bad experience.
Yeah, I mean, I had the same experience, huh?
Wait, y'all both tried to pay someone to get verified?
Well, that's how it works. If you're not like in media or if you're not a journalist, I mean, basically the companies do the same thing, right? But like they're paying someone who's legit.
Yeah. I just figured the media companies have contacts that work.
Yeah, they do. But like if you're not in the media company, you have contacts that it's like a trade. It's like a 30% hit rate. I'm sure some of them work, but my guy didn't.
What a scam.
Yeah.
Yeah, he legit ran with our money, basically.
He stringed me on a little bit, and then it became one of those things where it's like, is this worth it to pursue? And
you probably not. It's not.
So right. It is what it is.
Where is the freaking? I can't find the tweet to retweet it. Did y'all get tagged in it?
Let me see. Yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh yeah.
Let's holler at some retweet action so that people hop on.
Retweet is live.
Done.
Let's get it.
All right. Cool. Hey, can y'all give me a sound test? 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
3, 2, 1.
Okay. Let me turn y'all up a little bit. And there we go. We should be good now.
Nice.
All right. Let's go live. Ready?
Yep.
I'm going to fade it. And press the buttons. Press the records. 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to Weekly Open. I am Brian Krogsgaard here with Don and Luke. What's up, guys?
Bitcoin's Monday, man.
It is Monday indeed. And you know what? We're happy to be here with y'all on Weekly Open. This episode is brought to you by Blockfolio. Go to weeklyopen.com, which has a new coat of paint, by the way. Go to weeklyopen.com/Blockfolio to check it out today. Download it using that link, and then you can trade from one asset to the other, any asset you like, no fees, a great mobile experience, and it still has all the portfolio tracking features that you've loved since 2014, completely powered by FTX Books. FTX, now the owner of a stadium name as well in Miami. Thanks to Blockfolio for being our partner for the show. Once again, weeklyopen.com/Blockfolio. Check it out, download it, try it. It is fantastic. I tell you what, man, I've been doing a lot of withdrawals out of Blockfolio because we give away $1,000 or $2,000 per show for up only, which we do. And man, the withdrawal process and the deposit process is so stinking seamless on Blockfolio. It's great. So happy to have them. How are you guys doing?
Good. Doing well. Can't complain, man. Bitcoin's up. Yeah, everything's good. The trading's going to be good, and life's just overall better.
Yeah. What can you complain?
I agree.
What can you complain about when you break the resistance right as the Weekly Open is coming in and getting started for the day? We just can't fade this for the rest of the day. That's what's important, right?
Yep.
It would go from looking really good to looking really bad if we faded this daily. Don, why don't you give us an overview of where we are in the market from a price action perspective with Bitcoin?
Yeah, I can. So I kind of got I wasn't at home all weekend basically. I left early Friday, and we were down here, and I was like, this isn't looking too good, because I expected this to go to support and then maybe bounce from there. Kind of front ran it, and then legitimately this was resistance up at that point, and then just engulfed it and just shot off. So my system got completely blown out of the water. But I'm glad I didn't trade it because I wasn't home. But yeah, we closed at resistance yesterday. So if this gets faded today, that would be bad, I think. But as long as we're staying like this or going up, I think we're all good. Because if we fade this, right, the fearsome head and shoulders kind of starts showing up again.
Yeah, set some kind of lower high.
Yeah. I like this this just looks good as long as this candle closes like it is right now. As long as that's the case, we're all good. And even if we don't, let's say we close back below, we still have supports lower down. As long as we don't take out the higher low that we set, it's all good, basically.
My kind of line for where it looks a little gross is around 56.7 or so. Do you agree with that, Luke?
56.7. Honestly, I may be a little bit more loose with this just because I don't swing Bitcoin too much, right? It's more just positional. Even 48, 52 would be fine. It's not going to be fun. I'm not going to be having too much fun on Twitter. I'm not going to want to check Blockfolio, but the most important thing for me is I've looked at this trend in the past couple of months is every single month when we start the month, we're basically green. The first 2 weeks of each month we've ran up. And then if there's ever any selling, it's generally happening the last week of the month. And that's, a lot of people think that's because of what's happening with the options and people kind of pinning the market there. So the fact that the options expired on Friday, we got through that, the option bear market, now we're ripping right after. It's confirmation, the demand is still here. The market now can kind of trade where it needs to go. People aren't hedging aggressively. And the fact that we had this today, even though it's a small move, I think is kind of symbolic of, now the market's unpinned, this is where it wanted to go. So To me, I think things are pretty good. I wouldn't even be that worried if we got down to that green box that Don has marked there at 50.
Yeah. So I think the only thing I would add to that is I like to watch this 20-day, particularly for flips, right? So it's a fast moving average. We definitely fall below it frequently whenever we're like in consolidation. The faster the moving average, the more likely it is to get faked out. But one of my favorite trades with it is when it's recaptured, because it's usually a tendency of the market kind of recapturing momentum, breaking out of that consolidation. So usually when you get a pretty confident break above that 20 days, 20 days also the midline on the Bollinger Bands. If people are curious why I like this moving average in particular, because people are always so arbitrary what moving averages they like and stuff. I like the added confluence that it's also a central part of Bollinger Band analysis. So with this daily, why I was nervous is we closed yesterday's daily just under that 20-day. It was like right into kind of the demand zone, whatever. And so now if we flip this and then maintain that level that I was talking about around 57, then it makes me feel like we kind of want to bounce up and either continue consolidation and whatever this narrowing range is, whatever you want to call that, or maybe we get some real markup, which would be sweet with this new monthly on the way. So
you tried real hard to not call it a rising wedge, did you?
I don't
even say that word.
Yeah. I'm not sure that I buy it as like a rising wedge, really. Not yet. Like maybe if it's up here at like 66, you know what I mean? Like it's not really danced in there for too long. Like you could have tried to draw something back here, but this is a classic Bitcoin thing to do, right? Like just break
and run.
Yeah, break and run out of something like that. And I feel like generally the more narrow a consolidation range, the more any asset likes to just break down out of it until it becomes more reasonable consolidation on high time frames. So back when we had prior consolidations, like they just didn't look good as consolidation. Even if they looked good as consolidation on a 4 hour, they don't necessarily shape up as well like when you get to something like a daily. But now we're getting to however many bars it's been, 38 bars. That's over a month of like no real new high on Bitcoin. That's a reasonable amount of consolidation in my mind. And then on the weekly, like a strong trending market, it doesn't have to consolidate. Like that's a bear market when it consolidated for a long time there, right? Even here in 2019, it went to the very edge of consolidation's potential, which makes it less demand. Like Josh talks about this a lot. Like if you have these patterns, they should really break out by the time they're about 2/3 full, because people realize it's the pattern and then there's enough demand to get out of it, And if it goes to the very edge, it's almost like this desperation and tends to not go the direction you want it to, with some exceptions. Like this one was totally a sneaky one where it went all the way to the tip of reasonable consolidation. Everybody was moaning and groaning about that. And then, it actually broke up instead of down. But for the most part, I don't need massive consolidation on a weekly basis. Just a couple of candles sideways could end up looking like a really nice consolidation on those, daily and 4 hour timeframes.
Yeah. I mean, you showed the 4 hour earlier. That looked like an inverse head and shoulders if you're into the pattern kind of things.
Yeah. You mean from here? Or though this one? Yeah. Yeah, I guess you could. But my thing is, again, you start getting all loon-liney on this if you keep drawing. My thing on these is this is a very narrow pattern, so like it could play out pretty much at any point. Like kind of the maximum though would be the full height of the previous pattern. So you take that up there, and lo and behold, that takes you back to prior highs. So yeah, you could say that's a thing, but it doesn't mean it's going to go like to 80,000 because it's got this tiny little inverse head and shoulders. But it's tradable, I guess, for somebody that's doing active trading, trying to figure out like where's the next $1,000, $2,000 moves or whatever.
Yeah. Like one of the things I keep considering as well, open up this screen real quick, is you guys can see that chart, can you?
Uh-huh.
like, I think the biggest consideration, like for everyone, whether you're a trader or an investor in Bitcoin, is basically just, is the bull market over? Like that's the question I ask myself like every week. And if you look back at 2017, that's the best guide of where we have like a ridiculous parabolic market that lasts as long as the current one has. If you count this market starting as in March, like when we didn't even have too much consolidation that run up to 20K. Like there were periods though where we would have the 20 or 30% pullbacks. Here's a great example. Basically each time, right, within that 30-day window after we started pulling back, we're breaking to new highs. Like if all of a sudden, even one of the nastier ones, which was September of 2017, we pulled back almost a full 40%. But within the next 30 days, like 1 month, we're already making new highs. So like as I look at all this action, like patterns aside, levels aside, as you're watching a blow off top, like Bitcoin's going to have 20 or 30% pullbacks, these type moves that we've had twice now in the past 2 months, like that's happening. But if within the next 30 days, like even if we're consolidating, if we break a new high, to me, it's like, I'm just going to keep holding my Bitcoin. Like, if you have the 30% pullback, you consolidate and don't make a new high, then you start to say, holy shit, what's happening here? Is that the top? But until that happens, man, like, I don't know. Like levels aside, patterns aside, it's like the party goes on, at least for me.
Yeah. Yes.
I like that a lot.
People always talk about like, how do you make sure that you capture 80% of the trend? And honestly, when you have such a large trending market, capturing 80%, you've done very well, right? Like you can take if you get out with only a 20% drawdown and it's when the music actually stops, you've done quite well. Because in a strong trending market like that, 20% is a normal pullback, right? So if you're capturing 80%, sure, then figuring out like, when do I exit? When do I get back in? All that kind of stuff. Like it can become quite difficult to capture that 80%. It's much more reasonable, actually, in my mind, that you only get like 60% of the trend because you're waiting for like a much fuller breakdown before you risk off.
I mean, the thing is, like, if you get out with like more than 50%, like let's say this crypto market, like bull market continues and you get out with like 50% of your all-time high value, I think you've done pretty well, considering like altcoin movements and all that stuff that comes in at the tail end of the bull market. I think like most people would have been really, really happy if they just kind of got out with like having 50% of their all-time high value.
Yeah, that's pretty hot. That's pretty hot take, though. Like people always talk about capturing the vast majority of the trend, and
yeah, sometimes you over capture basically, right? You go all the way to all-time high and then pulls back, and then you're like, oh, maybe this just starts bouncing again and keeps on going higher, and then you get invalidated, and that might be a 50% move, that might be a 40% move, and then you're like, okay, I'm taking profits now, and then you're not going to be at your all-time high value, right? You don't have to necessarily sell the top. You don't have to sell on the way up either. You just have to have an invalidation at some point.
Yeah, I think if you can capture it, one of the best places, if you leave that there, is that complacency bounce after the initial pain, right? Like, so you might be 40% down or something on the wick, like not, if you go...
the higher one, right?
Yeah, the higher one.
The higher one.
Yeah, so like, if you can properly capture that as complacency after it has that wick down, back up, and then you sell close to the top of that, the top to bottom of that is pretty nice, right? Like you've had a drawdown, but you sold the complacency back up, and that's where you risk off. And that's what, to be frank, like when at this point of the market, when we have these like lower highs, you want to see strength come in because you don't want to be the person that's got their hopium still on when it's just the complacency bounce,
Yep. But I think like that complacency bounce comes after like a massive crash usually, right? And it has not felt, to me anyway, that we've had a massive crash. I mean, if you look at that, like 20K to, what was it, 10K?
It was like back to 10K, I think, yeah.
Yeah, that felt massive. I still remember sitting through that and I was like, oh, this is brutal. And I had sold a bunch of stuff already. And I still was like, oh shit, this is nasty. Yes. And I don't think I haven't felt like that for a second during this entire run up, basically.
Yeah. Every down move. So that was the most significant down move of the entire cycle. and we were the most extended off of the mean on the high end, and it was the sharpest correction. Like everything about that was just different than the rest of the dips in that market. So, you know, a smarter investor would have been able to see like, okay, I think this is complacency, but I feel like you probably have to experience it or trust someone that's been through something like that type of, you know, like whatever, like a 10 sigma move or whatever, to realize what's different about it when it breaks down. Or else it'd be really easy to get trapped in it.
Yep.
The one from that bull market where I really remember is right where your blue breakdown line is. Look there, 12K or so. Like on that right side, you're on a daily chart, but like on the mid time frames is kind of what I was getting at earlier. That felt like such a tight consolidation. And when it broke down from that, that's when, if you haven't done it yet, now you got to get out. And obviously a lot of people did. But like, look how brutal it gets once it breaks down from something like that, you know?
It was like when the discussion back then was like, all right, we had our dip, you know, we've had our one bounce since the massive 40% pullback. Have the dip, it got bought back up. Here's the last dip. That was what people were saying at the time.
Yeah.
The tough part, I think, about 2017, 2018, or early 2018 was for the next 2 or 3 months, really, I guess all the way through March, like that was the wildest time in alt's history. Like if you go back to a lot of alt charts, like where they topped out, like for me personally, I didn't even have as much kind of total portfolio value at the top as I did like 3 or 4 months on into 2018. Not that my portfolio reached dollar all-time highs, but like the way that alts were bouncing here, I think it made everyone think, man, if my alts are going up 5x every single week, maybe Bitcoin can bounce back. So that was like one of the really tough, kind of like, you know, is a huge contrast of like the whole market's incredibly bullish. Bitcoin isn't.
During that entire complacency run until it broke down from 12K, that's when alts were running, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
So I don't think alts really started to dive until what month was that where it broke down?
It was
February.
Yeah. February. Okay. So actually Bitcoin got to its lowest. Most alts topped basically last week of January.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a funny thing where like, even as we broke down through that, it was like, all right, that was one more kind of, you know, everyone got licked. Now we go back up. And then it was like, no, we just go lower. But like alts actually still were making new all-time highs. Like, you know,
up until that point. Yeah.
Yeah, like ETH old all-time high was when Bitcoin was just getting absolutely annihilated, and it's because ETH was going up in Bitcoin terms. So it's like, yeah, it's one of those things where if that thing does happen, you know, if that does happen again for Bitcoin, if we have a period where we consolidate for a month, we don't make a new all-time high, we have a 20 or 30% drop, it's like you kind of gotta, you know, whether you're an alt trader and you're cool with that, like sure, play the alts, but you got to start really thinking about what's coming in 1 to 2 months.
Yeah, I think in general with the altcoins, like if they go completely crazy again, especially the shit ones. I mean, if you look back on Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, XRP, like all of those, if they go really mad after Bitcoin just kind of starts looking really bad, I think then you're in for very, very, I mean, it's going to be very likely that the top's already in. I mean, that's how I'm going to look at it anyway. If I'm looking for top signals, that's going to be a big one. Altcoins just going completely mental while Bitcoin is just very, very weak, because that always pulls people in, right? That's the best trap that you can set. You're like, okay, the altcoins go crazy. The only way that you can really, I mean, nowadays it's a little bit less so, but like you're still going to buy Bitcoin to get into the market to buy altcoins with, right? And if not that, you're still going to have exposure to Bitcoin while you're doing that. So what better trap could be set for new people in the market than just alts going completely crazy? So if altcoins, especially the ones that are not really super useful, I mean, I would exclude DeFi from that, because I mean, there might be promise in DeFi.
It's more fundamental justifications for why DeFi might pump.
Yeah, but there's if you see like XRP go up like 5x, 6x, Bitcoin Cash, same deal. Litecoin, I think Litecoin's one of the better ones. If that happens, I think then you're gonna have to think long and hard about being over, like having too much exposure. Until then, it's just basically trading the chart, I guess. And I mean, for me, that's been just sitting on my hands, watching it go up.
What do you guys think about this Visa news with ETH? Are we finally going to see ETH do anything. I got comments when I posted that earlier. They're like, "What are you talking about? ETH's at 1,700," and I'm like, "Man, ETH has been doing nothing. It's just tagging along with Bitcoin."
Yeah,
does this news mean anything?
Yeah, this is one of our favorite topics in this show because like we're just all looking at Ethereum like, when the heck are you going to move relative to Bitcoin? Because if you look at this ETH BTC 4 hour that I pulled up, it's just this incredible grind. And I mean, we're going to get a big move in ETH. This is all this tells me here is like, this is the type of thing. I tend to be a little bit of a contrarian investor. And this is the type of thing where I feel like everyone is so fed up with Ethereum. I feel like it's ready to make some kind of ridiculous move. And I don't know. We talked last week. Could we get that spring, right? And Don, we got this right here. Was that enough of a spring in your mind? Or do you think that was just a tease of a broader breakdown? Because it didn't go down near as much as I would have anticipated because like to be that kind of proper spring. But if you consider like how tight everything was here, I mean, it didn't feel good when it happened if you had exposure, but it was only like 5% relative to Bitcoin. You know, it wasn't a significant like breakdown type of spring. And I don't know. I have a hard time being bearish ETH BTC still.
Yeah, I mean, the breakdown was really, really shallow. The thing that I do not like, I mean, we made this box basically dark green, right?
Now it's got to be dark red.
Now
what are you doing?
I mean, nothing I can do about it, right? As long as it's trading below there, I wouldn't want to touch it. It's just not for me. I mean, the breakdown was very, very weak, so I could see it just reclaim it and then go. But I mean, it would have to reclaim it for me. And the thing is, like, that's so close, right? That's just like 4 to 5% move. That doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but I think it's pretty risky here. But I could see it. I mean, everything's kind of faked out over the weekend, right? So you had all these levels close below them, and then next day you just engulf it and go to the upside. So I could see the same thing here. But for me, I mean, I've waited for a while now on this. I'm not going to be like the one that jumps in before it actually does something that I want to see. Because I mean, if you think about it, right, could have bought in here when it was like entering the support area. And I mean, that was a better buy in my opinion than down here. And it's going to be a better buy again if it crosses above. And I think that's actually going to be a really good buy if we can kind of make it go past resistance, break our box, and then fly. I mean, that would be the one that I want to see. Until then, not liking it too much on the chart side of things.
I mean,
the fundamental side of things, I mean, there's a bunch of good news, right, for ETH. We've had so many good news and nothing's really pushed it up. So maybe this is the one, but I'm not entirely sure yet.
Yeah, for sure. And man, it's been a difficult market because in some ways I think it's good. In some ways it just makes it harder. But like everything's not the same. So I had talked about sushi as a proxy before, and like it looked really strong here. It faded. And it's just like on the precipice of this pennant, I finally gave up, and I was like, I'm not waiting for this to break down to this 200 day. But like sushi just looks really weak all of a sudden. But this is not everywhere. So you look at ETH where it's got that grinding bottom. You look at sushi where it looks like it just keeps wanting to lose a little bit versus Bitcoin. And then what I find interesting is you get to some other pairs and it's like all of a sudden they're showing some pretty significant relative strength versus Bitcoin, and they're pairs that really never have before, like Curve. So it's like, is this just like the unpumped stuff pumping? Or is this a rotation? I don't know. It's tricky to me. In that Curve chart, it looked even better back before, Bitcoin started moving overnight. But like I've been talking about how Curve is the best looking DeFi chart there is, because I love just the way it hit this, it hit this high here, which was never broke out versus its prior, but didn't have a deep retrace. And now it's just kind of grinding back up and finding strength in pretty much every dip relative to the rest of the market. And But Curve is not the one you would have pointed at, right? You would have pointed at Sushi, you would have pointed at Uni, you would have pointed at Aave. And like even Uni, it was a total sell the news on Uni 3.0. And now it looks like it's sitting at resistance. Like this is not a chart I want in. Like, I don't know if either of y'all has interest in that, but to me, that's absolutely terrifying. This is exactly the type of chart I would expect to break down.
I mean, we talked about this last week, right? We're like, if the Uni news if they end up being bullish for the market, then
everything is bullish.
Yeah, and that's not been the case. So, I mean, to me, we talked about this too, actually, this range. I still remember you saying, shit, I hope it doesn't go to the range extreme.
We were.
And there we go. Like, I mean, maybe that's where it bounces. I generally don't like...
I don't like double bottoms, double tops.
Yeah. And I mean, this is like we talked about, this is a lengthy consolidation, right? I mean, you could make a triangle out of this if you want to. You can make whatever you want out of it. But it's like, it's a long, long consolidation that you wouldn't expect to just bottom here and then go back up.
Yeah.
Versus Bitcoin. Now, I mean, I'd be happy if it did, but not looking too pretty. But I mean, Curve looked really good. Yeah.
Look at the Uni chart too versus BTC. Like it completely failed all-time high breakouts twice. So similar to what I talked about with Curve, it went up to some high, not quite what it did in DeFi summer, but then it broke out twice and failed both of them. And now it just looks incredibly weak. So there's this divergence in the market. Like not all alts are the same. And then you compare that to this grinding bottom in ETH. I am trying to figure out, and here's from a tradability perspective, are we actually starting to see flows from DeFi majors that did really well go back to either an ETH basis move or kind of the unpumped blue chip type of stuff?
I don't know. It's the same story. I mean, you guys showed Uni, you showed Sushi. You could show the exact same thing with synthetics. It's like all the large cap blue chip DeFis that ran 10 million% have slowed down, even if they're still the strongest fundamentally and the biggest projects, and they have probably the highest chance of surviving. Maybe it's just one of those things where like all the money that got into those, like there's just not that many more marginal dollars willing to buy those. But the smaller cap DeFi where, retail plays a role in all alts, but I think in small caps and in things with like massive upside and probably more risk, I think they just play a bigger role. And like, so it's much easier. You're seeing this weird rotation of like newer DeFi projects still in this crazy uptrend, while the blue chips have really settled. I don't know, man, because I'm also on the side where I like ETH right now. I'm really torn.
Yeah. I think it's both. I think ETH itself and these like unpumped blue chips, I would put like, maybe you call them like DeFi value plays. This, both of these are my bags, but like this partially why I have them, right? Like I think relative value, I think Curve and ZRX have fundamentals, right, in DeFi and have not pumped like others. So they're a relative value play. But I think ETH is a relative value play in the same mindset. Whereas we had these massive moves from synthetics and Sushi and Aave and Uni, and maybe that's the rotation we're seeing. Now, this is also a signal to me that like we're later in the altcoin bull market maybe than we want to be, right? Like because you're seeing altcoin rotation. It's not like throw a dart and everything pumps. That's what January was, right? Yeah.
I think in general, what's been happening with this, and I've seen this over and over and over again, it's the same actually that we've had with Link. So like Uni, Sushi, all that kind of stuff it creeps up in the market cap and gets back into gets into the top 10, top 20, right? And whenever that happens, things just start to slow down, right? I mean, you just have to think about Link. It got up there, and then people are like, okay, now it's so close to ETH. Does it really is Chainlink really worth like half of ETH or like a tenth of ETH? Yeah. And then the answer becomes, okay, maybe, but do I really want to risk something to capture the last 2x that it's going to do? And I think that's what's kind of starts slowing these coins down. It's the same with Uni. It's getting up there in market cap. It's getting close to like the giants in the space. And then people are just like, okay, I've ridden this thing up all the way. And do I really want to risk my gains on just capturing another times 2, times 3? if the largest move of it is already done. And I mean, that's something that we've seen over the years. I still remember the same being the case in 17, 18, that whenever you have a coin, like let's say you have like a top 50 coin and then you ride it into the top 10, top 20, then it's probably time to just kind of start taking some profits or just make it into a long-term hold, because I mean, you're not going to see as much volatility as you're kind of used to.
Yeah.
It's a lot more dollars to move that same coin X percent.
What's the path to your next 2X? Yeah, I think that was a good way to put it, Don. Yeah. And that essentially establishes the relative value for you, I guess, right? Like, I've long called for the repricing of DeFi, and for those, we maybe not got all the way, but we got a lot of the way repricing Uni and Aave and synthetics. Yeah. I mean, Uni went all the way to number 8 market cap. Can Uni go to number 4? Absolutely.
Sure.
But the path from 8 to 4 is not near as much upside for your average degenerate as the path from like whatever it was. What was it, like number 40 or something? And that was obviously too low.
Yeah.
So number 40 to number 8 was this omega pump from $3 to $30 or whatever it hit. So yeah. All right. So y'all are viewing this as altcoin rotation. Are you dancing with them? What are you doing?
So me personally, I've just been kind of struggling with finding a place where I really want to allocate while ETH is actually not looking too pretty to me.
Yeah.
Because I usually try to at least have ETH on my side as confidence when I dabble into the altcoins. I mean, when you have ETH making higher lows, all is good, right? People feel risk on, and it's easier to pick just based on the fact that even if you pick wrong, you're probably going to make money. That's pretty important to me because, I mean, I'm not the most fundamental kind of guy. So I have to have the market on my side, because if I'm probably going to pick the wrong altcoin, right? I'm still going to make money if I pick the right altcoin conditions. But I mean, I don't want to have the altcoin conditions against me. So while ETH is not trading above resistance, not kind of looking too hot, I don't want to get too exposed. I was looking at Link and I was like, I want to get in on this if it can kind of make the chart look good, and then it just never could, right? Yeah. This looks completely trash to me.
Yeah, it looks bad. It looks like it wants to go into just long-term distribution relative to BTC. That's not a that doesn't mean it's like a bear market versus USD. It's just not doesn't look like where you're relative.
It's not the hottest salt. Yeah.
Right.
Nope.
You know, you mentioned ETH not looking good, but I actually feel like the ETH USD chart looks even cleaner than Bitcoin's, but it's obviously lower, right? Like this was not a new high. Like we're a little low. We're not like broken out above that resistance on the current move. But the consolidation feels nicer to me. Like it kind of like this did back here, right? It was a very clear tension right at the all-time high before it marked up and then ground up some more, faded back, tested it, consolidate. I drew this line as this was like my line in the sand, you know, this where it broke out from. I didn't want to see a full retrace of it. And that's basically where we moved back up. But it wasn't like high demand, right? Like a high demand push would have been from like 1640, but it got as low as like 1540 or something. I just don't know what to make. I don't know what to make of that, you know? Like the pattern looks good, but it's definitely, it's not getting just like, you know, immediate demand all over the place.
I kind of feel the same way. Sorry, Duke, go ahead.
It's just so bizarre, man. Like I just feel like there's been 100 opportunities to pump and it just cannot do it. And I don't know if I kind of still view EIP 1559 and this potential for an upgrade in the summer. I still view that as bullish, but now I'm starting to see the other side of like whether or not that's going to be accepted and how many people in the ETH community actually want that and what are the technical risks. Like I'm not smart enough to be able to evaluate that, but I do think it's not all bullish. Maybe some of the catalysts that we're looking forward towards. So maybe that's what's playing out in the chart is it's like some of the catalysts that people have been excited about aren't all, like there's risks associated with those as well. So I don't know. I've been bullish ETH. I've been wrongly bullish ETH like too much for the past month or two. I'm still bullish ETH. Like I still think it goes on to new highs, but like, I'm not proud of it. Like it's one of those things that you kind of hold ETH and you're like, shit, what am I doing here?
Luke and I are coping over our Ethereum bullishness.
It is what it is. Yeah. It's one of those where I'm like, I know I'm not going to sell those because I'm going to watch it run past 2K, but like, I'm not happy about it. I'm certainly not talking about it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, for me, it's kind of like looking at this. I was like, if it closes below this box, it's probably toast, right? And then it closed below and then just recapture it the next day. So it's like, it's not good for me either, right? Like I was like, this is probably going to go down in here. And then it did. And then I was like, okay, if it closes below, this is really going to be bad. It did. And then it just kind of went all the way back to where I started being like, this is not looking too hot. So it's like, I don't know who's trading this. I don't know who's making money on this. If you are, I mean, hats off to you. This is pretty tough, I think. This is a pretty tough chart to trade. Because like right now you're at resistance. If you're like, okay, if this reclaims it, it's going to moon. But then again, it's ETH, right? It's been like moving weirdly in like a million times, like in a million ways that I can't comprehend. So for me, it's just like, okay, just do whatever you want to ETH. I'm just going to look at ETH BTC weekly. This is my kind of thing that's been working for me, this chart, and I'll just keep away from everything else. And if it can reclaim that resistance, I think we might see actual upside on it for once, and more upside on it than on Bitcoin. So this is the line in the sand for me.
How much have y'all been looking at these legacy correlations? Because what I found interesting is honestly the SPY looks very similar in that it is making pretty ugly like breaks into what should have been all-time high breakouts and continuation. Like how similar does this look to what we've seen in crypto, where it's just like non-convincing moves upward? Maybe you could say it's healthy as long as it maintains this consolidation, but it's certainly not got like a level of attractiveness to buyers at these breakout levels. I've just been really fascinated by this seeming similarity between crypto and legacy. And I mean, how do you deny it too, right? Because of what's happened since March. Like it seems like it's kind of due for this longer term consolidation. Do you think these markets are playing in a related fashion?
I don't know. I go so back and forth. Lately, I haven't looked at it at all. Even like a month or two ago when everyone was focused on it, I just didn't buy it. I think there's certainly points in time, right? Like I used to look at dollar yuan when there was this weird correlation with what dollar yuan was doing with Bitcoin. And there's, certain times where Bitcoin and equities will trade tick for tick. I think it's generally like when people are like very news headline, like hungry, like people are watching, is the stimulus going to pass and how did equities react? And, based on how they opened, is that bullish for Bitcoin? Like, I think that matters, maybe at point A and point B, but like everything in between, just like, I think Bitcoin could rip up higher again. Like all it takes is one announcement from Twitter to say they added, Bitcoin to their corporate treasury and Bitcoin goes for a rip and equities can keep doing whatever they want to do. Unless something like crazy happens, like if there's a 20% down day in stocks, sure, I bet Bitcoin feels some of that too. I haven't been paying attention to it that much, but maybe I'm just missing out. I don't know. I haven't been watching it.
I mean, for me, it's so weird how Bitcoin is basically doing the same thing as the traditional markets to me. It's just been much, much bigger, right? It's a much bigger move. It's felt less risky too, which is kind of weird. But yeah, for me, there is definitely something there. It's not something that you can necessarily trade all the time on the lower time frames. I mean, we've had some times in the last year, basically, where it's been really, really easy to trade the correlation between them. And then we've had other times where it's just been like, okay, everyone gets run over that is trying to trade the correlation. And I think it's more of a long-term thing, and I do think it's pretty damn similar. So, I think if we take a break in the traditional markets, Bitcoin's probably going to take a break as well. It's going to be more of what's going to perform better? Yeah. Then it's going to be, okay, one is doing well, the other is doing poorly.
Legacy markets have their own rotation going on too. Like the NASDAQ looks absolutely atrocious to me. Like it doesn't even have close to the same recovery that the S&P does. And as y'all know, like it was the leader always for years, you know, so like there's some pretty clear legacy rotation occurring too. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening in legacy. I just feel like it's something I want to keep an eye on because I do think it can be a drag on the crypto market at a bare minimum. Same with the Dixie. This is the weekly. It's basically at the top of the range that it could possibly go to and still be bearish in my mind. If I look purely at the moving averages are telling me to get over it and deal with the strong dollar. As we've said before on the show, this is a relative fiat basis. So it's the dollar versus other stuff when you look at the Dixie. So maybe that gives it some wiggle room to be strong without particularly affecting something like Bitcoin, if Bitcoin's still better than each individual currency. But on a relative basis, this has always been a pretty strong signal for crypto. And overall, it looks fairly strong to me, the Dixie does. It's also kind of at the peak short potential, right? Like if you're going to short the Dixie, like this is probably like your best risk reward area to do it. So I'm pretty torn on it.
I mean, when I'm looking at it, it depends on how the next 2 days go.
Right.
But I mean, this looks damn bullish to me. Like I mean, just from a technical kind of standpoint, you've had like, this is what I look for in every single coin. And even on Bitcoin, whenever we set a bottom, like these kind of things, into a reclaim of support. I mean, this looks pretty damn good to me. Yeah.
So you don't have today's on there. You're just looking at completed dailies.
Yeah. I mean, this is the monthly, right? So.
Oh, okay. That's why I'm missing it.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're looking at this on the monthly time frame, this is a huge reclaim to me. Like this was resistance in here, and you had the breakout, retested, failed, retested. I mean, this is like an area that's been traded in a bunch of times. The market's been turning around there a million times. Like if this was crypto, I would be trying to get long in that area if the monthly closes like this.
Yeah.
So
it's not pretty for crypto because it's typically an inverse correlation. So I can show I've had these vertical lines forever. The end of the 2014, from December 2016 is really where that bull market started for crypto. And look, this is where the bull market ended. This was almost entirely a bear market and then, you know, basing. And this is where the bull market really kicked off. And so it, at least for the couple of cycles, it's been a pretty darn good macro indicator.
Yep.
Concerning.
Concerning, yeah. Concerning. I just think Bitcoin's like it's a trillion, right? But it's still so small, man. There's so many forces here at play. Like you could have a strengthening dollar versus other currencies that are getting weaker, and still kind of the dollar could be getting weaker towards Bitcoin. Like definitely a good indicator. It's like we talked about at the beginning of the show. Like looking at that macro market structure for Bitcoin does help, right? But you have to consider other things. Like you have to be kind of have some kind of rule set going into it. I understand things are changing all the time, so.
For sure.
Definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not too worried about it yet.
Yeah, well, smarter people than me talked to CMS Holdings, Dan, last week, and he was like, look, man, it's hard enough to get crypto trades right. Like, why are you trying to get macro right at the same time?
Exactly.
So, you know, I need to take that, heed that advice, because it can shake you out of your positions if you let yourself get shook by them. So why don't we dig into, Don, mine and yours kind of top watch of last week, and then we'll do a review of that, and then what our top watch is for the week ahead.
What were you guys looking at last week?
That's a good question. Because I don't. Oh,
do you not want to bring it up?
No, I was interested in whether or not Alpha could break up. Okay. And then it looked like it did, and then it completely faded it, and it's right back to where it was, which has been the theme. Every time I bring up, like, here's the altcoin that I want to see if it can find additional strength, it's like, I don't know, man, that's like really deep into this consolidation. It's starting to, it should have broken up here, you know, and the fact that it didn't is making me feel like it's more distribution on Alpha than anything else. But it doesn't make me necessarily like bearish because it hasn't broken down. It's just it didn't give you the like impulse and go move that you would have wanted in that scenario. So it kind of makes me feel like it's Sushi 2.0, right? Like it just break up, consolidate, and inevitably just weaken after that. And that's kind of my fear looking at that. And then I'll get into what I'm watching next week. But Don, do you remember?
I mean, I think I talked about ETH.
Yeah. You're all over this ETH BTC chart.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically been... I was like, this is not gonna... it doesn't look like it wants to go up. I want to see it go up if I want to get position. I think we talked about like this close and we're like, we don't like it. Like you and I both didn't like it.
Yeah.
And then it broke down the next week. So, I mean, still not looking good on the ETH front. Something I want to talk about, this was something that I mentioned in like the first time that we talked, I think, or like the second time that we did like weekly open was Leo actually, which, I mean, this has been the most painful position I've ever had. I think this is so dumb. It's just sitting there. It looks like it's moved a lot, right? But it's like, this is so stupid. This is the worst chart I've ever seen. Like from just holding this thing. So yeah. I talked on it like months ago, actually. Like it's more than a month now. And
it's like if you didn't catch it that 1 week, you were screwed.
Yeah, basically. And I mean, I caught it in the middle here. So it's just been like, I mean, it's just nice, like having a 20% gain, right? But it's like, it's the most painful 20% I've ever made. So this has been sucking, but I mean, I still think this can go up, right? I mean, it's not looking too bad, even like on this chart, even on the higher time frames. So I mean, I hope this continues to go up. And then like still the same thing with ETH BTC. I'm going to position myself aggressively in the altcoins if we cross this again. This is already an improvement to me because before I was actually looking for it to kind of reclaim this.
Yeah.
And now it's much, much closer. So, I mean, this is what I'm going to be watching. If it crosses there, I'm going to buy some altcoins. I'm not going to go all in because, I mean, it's still bearish technically to me, but I'm going to dip my toes. So this is going to be the thing to watch.
You'll turn that solid red back to solid green.
Yeah. Looking forward to that actually.
So when I showed that earlier as a potential spring, like on those mid time frames, maybe, but yeah, certainly when you look at this, it just looks like it's retesting resistance. But that doesn't mean it can't go further. Today is Monday, you know.
Yeah.
This is weekly open for a reason. We could get that full completion of the spring this week, and it would all of a sudden next week we're like super bullish and being telling a whole different story.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it before, right? On this ETH-USD chart, for example. I mean, you just close below it, and then the next day, just completely blast through it, make me look like an idiot. And I mean, that just happens, right? That's trading.
This is why consolidation is particularly difficult to trade, though. And sometimes, like, just a lack of active trading can be your friend until you get some confirmation. All right, so that's what you're gonna roll that into what to continue to watch, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's basically I can't like recommend going into any altcoin other than the ones that you maybe like fundamentally or whatever until that resolves, and that's been the case. And I mean, I don't even know, like the last 2 weeks, altcoins haven't really been doing that well, right? Most of them have been pulling back, or like just went sideways, right? So
yeah, a lot of sideways grinding, etc. So for me, the top watch this week is these relative value plays to see if that is actually true. Curve being my top one. Like if this is a relative value play, if this is going to have a move, then this should be maybe not as strong, but like when Uni broke its USD all-time high, it should break above 350 and it should get significant markup. Like from 350, I want to see like $6 plus at a bare minimum. I want $10 curve, something like that. Relative to the Bitcoin pair, it should have cleared, all this junk down here and have clear markup into prior highs, 900 sats. That's almost a double from where it is currently relative to Bitcoin. So aligns with that USD markup. And if it's like properly altcoin bullish, it could even go further than that. It could go further than I anticipate. This is where I get to this relative value. Like theoretically, I should be able to seek a 3 or 4x on an altcoin like Curve even. That's ambitious, but there's been relative strength on this pair and on this market. So I'll use that as my proxy. And that should probably relate to some of the ones that I've looked at in the past, but like so far, like Alpha, it just hasn't proven it. And maybe it's that same concept, right? It was 3 cents and now it's $1.83. So maybe people just don't care. They're so profitable, they're treating it as their distribution.
I really like your curve setup, actually. Looks really good on the USD. And looks decent-ish on the Bitcoin pair, I think. But like the USD pair is pretty nice.
Yeah, and I preempted that a little bit. Like I started entering somewhere in the 2s. I don't remember where. It's been a handful of days, but I mean, I added to it last night. Like on the new weekly, I basically bought like whatever little dip there was or something, added to it at $3, and it just seems to be, it has more movement in it than other stuff, and I want to pay attention to that.
Yeah. Ever since it's broken out of this like downtrend here, it's been going completely mental.
It's been a pretty strong pair. Luke, what are you watching this week?
Besides watching Bitcoin go up, I'm looking at the chat, man. Everyone's saying DeFi is in distribution. I think like the biggest idea for me, let me share this real quick. Click yes, share, please. The biggest idea for me, we mentioned it, right? Like the DeFi blue chips are all underperforming now. So you have the Unis, you have the Sushis, the Aves, Links, right? They're all down significantly in Bitcoin. They're basically stalling. So you have very large cap coins that are basically not looking strong. Like momentum is down on them. They're not going up as fast, and they're just expensive. What I do think is interesting is there's like this weird divergence of those mid cap or smaller cap DeFi coins that are still looking really strong. So like not only are they better priced, but momentum is still there and they're making new all-time highs. One of them's Mirror. I really like the look of. It's kind of like a comparable to synthetics. Their volume's actually pretty comparable to synthetics as well. And then also things like Rune, ChaosNet coming up. It's basically like the mid to lower cap DeFi coins that still have really good momentum, still are kind of challenging their all-time highs. And I think they're just better priced. Like, sure, if DeFi continues to consolidate or goes down, all DeFi gets hurt. But like the things that look really strong, for whatever reason, it's like they can keep doing well. So I think you have ZRX, I would also put in that group, like challenging its all-time highs. You have groups of these DeFi coins that momentum actually still looks good, and I think they're more appropriately priced. I think Mirror fits in that. I think Rune fits in that, and I think ZRX fits in that. But past that, man, it's basically just watching Bitcoin. Like those are, day-long, 2-day-long trades. If you catch a swing, you catch it. If not, I don't think there's too much to do. So that's what I'm watching.
Yeah, we seem in pretty strong agreement on what could happen there. The one thing I'd say is I think, like I mentioned earlier, I think this would be a great week for ETH to start its move, but for the same exact reason. Flow, if Flow continues out of those blue chips, and this makes me rethink, like I re-entered at least a bit on Aave. But yeah, I mean, maybe the move is in the true mid caps of DeFi and the ETH pair. I tend to look for exactly what you put there, Luke. Looks like a classic. Like I'm obviously, if you're entering here, you're preempting the move that you get. But if you're right, it gives you like a free 4 or 5% buffer, right? It tends to be how I play these in crypto rather than waiting. So it might lower my strike rate a little bit, but it gives me an added buffer if I have a high confidence play that it's going to do a certain breakout. I'm getting more and more confident on that. Like it just hits a point of pain. Like when people are mocking something for being such a slow mover, but the fundamentals are so strong, it tends to make me feel like it's getting close,
Yeah, I think every bottom's kind of been set that way, right? Whenever you see people on Twitter complain, it's always been the point where it just starts bouncing up.
Yeah. I made the ETH bet. I made the ETH 2,500 bet with Josh at the beginning of the month. Or no, maybe even in February.
God, I'm in that bet, aren't I? What do we owe him if we're wrong?
I forgot that you got in it. You could probably not say anything, and if he doesn't listen back
delete
to this.
Yeah.
But I was looking for 2,500 back whenever we made it. And I was like, it doesn't even have to do that much to do it. But then it's just here we are, like doing a big bag of nothing for a long time. And it reminds me of one of those things where I'm going to lose the bet and then it's going to do exactly what I said. And it's going to do it in like 3 days.
Low time frame.
Low time frame. We're getting some movement here.
5 minutes. We're getting some movement. The bots are on.
Someone's listening. Someone's listening to us.
Let's go, baby.
You know what would be glorious? What's today? The 29th?
It actually is pushing the new high.
If we did like some kind of 30% move in 3 days, which is a very Ethereum thing to do, then man, I would laugh.
Are you guys watching this?
Yeah.
I mean,
this is I want to get off of here and go long it right now. So maybe that's what we'll do. Watch ETH. Keep an eye on it. Also, go trade on Blockfolio, weeklyopen.com/Blockfolio. And yeah, it's a great place to trade. We're happy to have them as a partner. Hey, and one more thing, while you're at it, I didn't mention this earlier, but you can go to weeklyopen.com website, catch the replays. Look at that. All those weekly open replays that you can go to. Thanks for joining us. We'll see y'all next week. Bye-bye.
Later.
Bye-bye.